fixed. And then I'm glad I made it in the end, and I'm also glad that I didn't have to present yesterday evening because I was a bit in a jet lag. So this morning, after a strong cup of coffee, finding fit, everything fine. Well, thank you very much for having me here. And let me just briefly introduce myself. I am a pediatrician. I run as a medical director a children's hospital close to Frankfurt, about 100 beds, and I treat just normal pediatric patients, flu, pneumonia, meningitis, whatsoever. And on top of that, I'm a pediatric neurologist with a special interest in the brain and the metabolic diseases. And that brought me to GLUT1 deficiency syndrome, and I trained with Dr. De Vivo and built up the network for GLUT1 deficiency in Europe once I returned in 1999. Now, I split my presentation in two parts. The white part is the clinical bit, which is giving you the idea about the patients, the way we diagnose them, we treat them, the ideas we have. And the second part is going to be the interactive part of how bench meets bedside, how I could possibly interact with the researchers and you guys. So let's go back to the white part, GLUT1 deficiency. How did it all start? In 1991, Dr. De Vivo, this is him, he had the idea that glucose transport might be impaired in these two patients. They had intractable seizures and developmental delay. But they also had a normal blood glucose and a low CSF glucose. And by that time, the glucose transporter at the blood-brain barrier was characterized, and he got the link. And I asked him once, how did you think that this is a novel disease? And he said, well, it was the lactate, the low lactate, that gave me the idea that unlike in mitochondrial disease, where you have a high lactate because you can't metabolize glucose, something must be wrong here, and probably it's a fuel problem. So he went ahead and described these two patients in the New England Journal of Medicine, and I was privileged to join him in 1997. This is the period I worked with him, and by the end of the period we had identified 10 patients who built up the glucose uptake assay, and we characterized the first mutations in these patients. From then on, the disease really was recognized increasingly. You can see here the Medline publications and the number of patients published, and you can see that now